Good afternoon. Welcome to Inside Indiana Sports, now with Kent Sterling. It's Thursday, August 19th, 2021. We're brought to you by the great people at Today's Dentistry. Dr. Mike O'Neill, the best at what he does. His staff, unbelievably talented, friendly people. Give him a call. 317-849-2933 is the number. Finally, once and for all, take control of your dental health, all right? Punch subscribe, hit like, ring the bell. Let's go. Let's talk about sports. We are about to get really, really busy in Indiana. Over the next 6 weeks and 2 days, we have 5 huge events taking place within the confines of this state, and all have huge magnitudes of importance for people in this state. Let's run them down, 5th through 1st. Number 5, 6 weeks and 2 days from tonight, Hoosier Hysteria at Simon Scott Assembly Hall. Mike Woodson's first team, the first guy with any tether to Bob Knight, who has coached the Hoosiers in the last 13 years. Dan Dockich was the last. He coached the Hoosiers for 7 glorious games back in 2008 after the fall of Kelvin Sampson. Mike Woodson has been hired as the permanent coach. Dane Fife on his staff, Thad Mata on his staff. It's going to be fascinating to see how this team plays. Reports from the Bahamas were that they played tenacious defense, and they were very kind of freewheeling offensively. Mike Woodson gave the players a bunch of latitude to call their own plays and figure out how to attack BC Mega, a team that they beat twice. Going to be fun to watch. Parker Stewart, right? Xavier Johnson, Tamar Bates, Michael Durr, Miller Kopp, a bunch of new guys, Logan Duncombe, and a bunch of guys coming back. Race Thompson, Trace Jackson Davis, Rob Finnessy, Jordan Geronimo. This is going to be a really interesting team. How good can they be? We begin to find out on August 2nd down at Simon Scott Assembly Hall. I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be like loaded for bear. I'm going to be hyped for that event down at Simon Scott Assembly Hall. All right, number 4. How about this? The resumption of Purdue and Notre Dame playing college football. Not since 2013 have these two schools and programs played against each other. They will play each other, like I said, on the 18th of September in South Bend. Now, this would look to be a mismatch on paper, right? Purdue wasn't very good last year. And so you've got Brom, and he's kind of on the hot seat a little bit. You've got Notre Dame ranked 9th. You would think it's going to be a walkover for the Fighting Irish, but I think the Boilermakers, they show up in South Bend, and they're going to give Notre Dame everything that they want. Purdue is kind of, they are in a prove-it season, and there is no way better to prove it to football fans in West Lafayette, in South Bend, the northern half of the state of Indiana, than to show up at Notre Dame and give them all they want and maybe escape with a victory. Notre Dame fans, I know, you think that that's heresy, but Purdue's going to come up there, and it's going to be a big deal for Purdue in a way that it probably isn't for Notre Dame, and Brian Kelly's going to have to combat against that. Number 3, the Colts at Tennessee. This is game number 3 of the regular season. It will take place at 1 p.m. on September 26th. We're going to have an idea what this Colts team is going to be before they get to Nashville. We're going to find out against Seattle and against the Rams here at Lucas Oil Stadium. We're going to figure out what kind of a team this is going to be. This is going to be a big game, though. This is a divisional opponent and the team that the Colts expect to duel with for the AFC South Championship. If you want to win the AFC South, going down to Nashville and beating the Titans is going to be a good way to start down that road, depending on what happens in the first 2 games. You've got a flawed team in Tennessee. You've got a flawed team yourself. That offensive line has got to get healthy. The defensive front's got to get a little bit healthy. Kwity Paye, back to practice. That's a good thing. Dio Odangbo, not back to practice, still recovering from that surgery to resync his and reattach his Achilles tendon. And you've got the same thing with Eric Fisher. If his Achilles tendon allows him to play in September, that'd be a victory for the Colts, who at least last Sunday looked like they don't have a starting left tackle on their roster. Sam Tevy did not look good. Julian Davenport did not look good. Will Holden did not look good. You need Eric Fisher on the field. So say Hail Mary that Eric Fisher is back sooner than later, going down to Nashville and putting out a win. That is going to be key to a successful season for the Indianapolis Colts. I think they're going to get better as the year rolls along. Carson Wentz hadn't been able to practice, other than the first practice and then about 3/4 of the second practice. So he's going to need some work to get in sync with his receivers, with his offensive line. Those guys are getting healthier. Ryan Kelly should practice, should have practiced today, and I don't know whether he did. They're off tomorrow, and then they will be playing the Vikings on Saturday night. I can't wait to watch the telecast of that game with Rick Venturi. Rick Venturi is such a wealth of knowledge and insight about the game of football. A great hire by the Colts for their TV crew in the preseason, and then the radio crew during the regular season working with Matt Taylor. Really looking forward to that broadcast Saturday night. But on September 26th, that's a monster game early in the season. We'll see how healthy the Colts are and whether they can compete successfully on the road against a division foe. Number 2, this is going to be fun right out of the gate, all right? The Hoosiers traveling to Iowa to play the Hawkeyes. That game's September 4th, Labor Day weekend at 3:30 on BTN. Indiana ranked 17th, Iowa ranked 18th. They are very evenly matched, and this is a game, for both these teams. It's a really important game. If they want to play in Indianapolis in December in the Big Ten championship game, somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose. If you lose, you're pretty much done as far as your dreams to come play in Indy. Indiana's going to have to beat Ohio State. Iowa could win the Big Ten West, but if they lose to Indiana, that's going to be a trick. That's going to be tough for the Iowa Hawkeyes. We'll see what happens. Indiana has a lot of guys returning. I think 18 starters. Michael Penix is back and healthy. You've got Freifogel. You've got Stevie Scott. You've got Peyton Hendershot. You've got Tywan Mullen, one of the best cornerbacks in college football. Marcelino Ball is back from his torn ACL. How about Micah McFadden? How about Marshall? How about R.J. Matthews? This is a team that might be as talented as any Indiana has had in the last 30 years, including last year's team, which finished 6-2. And really, if the Big Ten had held to its rules, Indiana would have played last year at Lucas Oil Stadium in the Big Ten championship, but they screwed around with the rules to get Ohio State in. They know it's important. I get it. TV ratings are important. Getting Ohio State into the college football playoff is important, but I thought Indiana got screwed by the Big Ten, to be honest. Indiana's going to have to take matters into their own hands, run the table, and find a way to Indianapolis and maybe into the college football playoff. I think it's easier to get into the college football playoff than it is to play at Indy, right? Because you're going to have to, you could get into the college football playoff if you're Indiana without beating Ohio State. But there's no way to get into the college football playoff, really, realistically, without beating Ohio State. So college football playoff, a little bit easier path than playing in the Big Ten championship. Anyway, Indiana ought to be really good. We'll find out whether LEO was just a mirage last year, right? 6-2. It was very nice, but it was weird season, had the COVID, all of that stuff. Now it's real college football getting underway in just a couple of weeks. We'll see. 2 weeks from this Saturday, Indiana at Iowa is going to be fascinating for IU fans. We're going to find out. Like, I am teetering on the brink of saying, okay, I'm in. I'm all good with Tom Allen. LEO, beautiful. Let's go. Indiana is back, baby. Back from where? When were they good? It was Bo McMillan back in the 40s, for God's sake. That's what they're, or John Pont in 1967. Maybe Tom Allen has this thing rolling in the right direction in a sustainable way. We're going to find out this year whether have fun at an Indiana football game is going to involve sitting your ass at Memorial Stadium for 4 quarters, which involves about 4 hours, and watching the entire game, or watching part of it, leaving at halftime and heading to Knicks. We're going to find out this year. The number 1 biggest event of the next 6 weeks, the Colts taking on the Seattle Seahawks at Lucas Oil Stadium on September 12th. There is so much to talk about whether this team is going to be able to compete at a high level and is going to be able to put itself in line for an AFC South crown. If Carson Wentz is able to play early and the Colts get off to a good start to their season, the Colts' first 5 games are huge, all right, and really tough. You got the Seahawks, you got the Rams, you've got the Titans, you got the Dolphins, and you've got the Ravens. All 5 of those teams won double-digit wins last year. They posted double-digit victories last season. I think this is the first or the third time in NFL history that that's happened. They're going to be tested early, and they're going to have to pass at least 2 of those tests if they want to be taken seriously by fans and put themselves in a position to go to the playoffs again and repeat what they did last year. Going 11-5, a 17th game this year, 11-6 probably gets you in. 12-5 certainly gets you in. We'll see if the Colts are capable of that, and that work begins on September 12th. The Seahawks, Russell Wilson, we know all about him. They got a good defense, not that Legion of Boom defense from a few years ago. They're not that good, but they're still pretty good, and Russell Wilson is really tough to corral in the pocket. He knows how to move in the pocket. He knows how to throw the ball downfield. He is one of the most accomplished quarterbacks in the NFL. We'll see if the Colts can measure up. Is Wentz going to play? Is Eric Fisher going to play? Dio Odangbo, where's he been? Is he on the sidelines? What kind of work is he doing? Eric Fisher, where's he? Right? Quentin Nelson, is he going to be able to play? Last time I saw him, he was in a boot. Carson Wentz is going through walkthroughs, though, and looks like a guy who's going to be able to play in week 1. What they want to get done with Carson Wentz, they want to have him invest in 2 weeks of practice, which means after the game that they play in Detroit against the Lions, the last preseason game, you've got 2 more full weeks of practice before it's go time against the Seahawks. If he is good enough at that point to practice after the Lions game, then it's going to be full steam ahead. Let's go Carson Wentz. 1 week of practice, they're a little bit shaky on what kind of availability Carson Wentz would have. But I'm telling you, Carson Wentz after a week of practice is a hell of a lot better and more competitive than Jacob Eason after 6 weeks of practice and a lifetime of playing football. My money's on Carson Wentz being successful with the Colts with no practices, as opposed to Jacob Eason. And that's not saying bad stuff about Jacob Eason. He's a 4th-round draft pick, for God's sake. And I know I talked about this morning. I just don't understand the vitriol against Carson Wentz. People say, Carson Wentz, 50 sacks last year and 15 picks. What are you talking about? And I go back and I say, but the previous 4 years, he had 81 touchdown passes and 21 picks. So he is a guy who has thrown the football accurately. He didn't last year. He had a shambles of an offensive line. His weaponry was on the shelf as much as they were active. And people want to say, well, Jacob Eason, I think over the next 3 weeks, can learn how to feel pressure in the pocket and really develop some pocket presence in 3 weeks. He hasn't been able to do it in 22, 23 years. But somehow over the next 3 weeks, the light switch is going to go on. And all of a sudden, it's not going to be strip sacks and getting pummeled because you're not moving your right foot after you plant it. Somehow, it's all going to be okay. But with Carson Wentz, we can't foresee any kind of football that's going to be of a high quality from this guy because isolated in 2020, he didn't have a very good year. That's just crazy. I don't understand. Maybe people from Philadelphia just hate the guy and they've kind of poisoned the water in Indianapolis through social media, where now we just expect the absolute worst from Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz was the number 2 overall draft pick in 2016. He was 3rd in the MVP balloting in 2017. In 18 and 19, he had top 10 quarterback years. 2020 was a train wreck. He was replaced by Jalen Hurts. I get it. He had 1 year where he didn't play well. Now, if they're healthy, there's going to be a good offensive line. He's got plenty of weapons. He has a terrific backfield right in Jonathan Taylor and Marlon Mack and Nyheim Hines. I don't get it. You want to hate on Carson Wentz, but love Jacob Eason and say you're not giving Jacob Eason a chance, but say that Carson Wentz doesn't deserve a chance? Wait, what do I do with you? How do I deal with people who leave that kind of commentary? And please do leave a comment. I want to read and respond to what you have to say and what you believe. It's one of the most interesting parts of doing all this. So please comment. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button if you like that. And know that I'm going to read your comment and I'm going to comment back to it because that's what we do. We have a conversation. Tomorrow morning, another one. Breakfast with Kent, bright and early, about 7 o'clock, 7:30. Cannot wait to talk to you then.